Sometimes things happen that we can't quite put our finger on. We don't really know why they happened or how they happened. It's sort of outside of the realm of, our understanding. And, it's hard for us to compartmentalize what transpired, but, we always find a way. And, if you try hard enough, there's an old saying that goes, if you can't explain something, don't try, because you're gonna end up hurting yourself thinking too hard about that one, and you don't want to do that because that's gonna mess you up in the long run. So if you could just reach into your pocket for me and oh, what's that in your hand? What you got there in your hand? You just pull out your pocket. What's that? Oh, that's 2 tickets. 2 tickets to the Bonkers Theater. Ryan Johnson was a hard-working man. He worked at a gas station that he co-owned with one James Peters. It was located out in a small Nevada desert town. Most of the customers were drifters or passerbys. The two both did their best to deliver a fantastic gas station experience for everyone that stepped foot in their shop or just pulled up to the pumps. The two would work the same hours and switch off between being behind the store counter and being out by the pumps. The one would look after the pumps and would always pump gas for the drivers and even clean their windows. The one working inside the shop would assist the customers to the best of his ability and would always liven up their days with friendly conversation. The two were best friends and would always shut down the gas station together and talk to each other as they'd get into their car and return to their house that they rented together. They would then take showers in each of the house's 2 bathrooms and put on their pajamas and sleep in their 2 twin beds next to each other. The two would wish each other good night and sweet dreams and turn their lights off and fall asleep. The two would often dream in unison. One specific night, they had dreamt that they were stranded on a desert island and had to work together to survive and build a raft to escape. The dream had seemed to go on for months and almost years, and by the time the two friends had awoke from their slumber, the two had a much stronger bond together. They arose before sunrise, as they often did, and began to prepare breakfast. They made lots of yummy pancakes, topped with various fruits and syrup. They also made a big batch of scrambled eggs, and 2 big bowls of oatmeal. The two chowed down on their big tasty breakfast, and when they finished, they rubbed their bellies with a big satisfied grin across each of their faces. They then piled into their car and drove off in the early morning to their gas station. They were so excited for another day of hard work and great customer service, they could hardly contain themselves. James tuned the radio into the town's local news station. The radio whirred and sputtered and let out a sharp static. Something muffled was coming over the speakers, but neither James nor Ryan could make it out. It was strange because they had never had any issue with the radio before. It had always worked perfectly fine. Ryan tuned the radio to some of the other stations from nearby towns, but still the radio didn't seem to pick up anything. The 2 men were stumped and figured that maybe the radio had blown a fuse, or whatever radios do that make them not work correctly. The two drove on for quite a while longer than usual. James turned to Ryan. "Does something seem off to you?" James asked. "What do you mean, James?" Ryan responded. "Well, usually we'd be at the gas station by now, but I don't see it anywhere." Ryan pulled the car to the side of the road. "So what are we gonna do now?" Ryan asked. "I'm not sure," Maybe we can just turn around and see if we missed a turn or something, suggested James. There are no turns. Every day we make a right out of the driveway and go straight to the gas station. But today there is no gas station. It's normally on the right side of the road, and it takes about 3 minutes to get to it. We've been driving for at least 15 minutes. Ryan sat puzzled at the wheel, and then decided to step out of the car to clear his head for a bit. The sun hadn't risen at that point, so the two men were out on the side of the road in the dark of the morning. The men put their hands on their waist and looked around the dark, empty desert and scratched their heads. Well, I guess we'll just head back home, James decided. The two men got back into their car and headed back towards the direction which they came. They drove and passed nothing of note. The sun had rose and the men had still not arrived home. Both of the men were now worried that they had somehow become lost on a straight road. They would travel for about 30 minutes in each direction before turning around and heading back. They had done this for hours and hours until their car beeped to indicate that it was low on fuel. When this happened, the two men decided that they should stick to heading in one direction until they find some gas station, if not their own. The car had finally run out of gas. The two men began to push the car as hard as they could down the road, but they gave up about a mile in. They then decided it would be easier just to walk down the road until they find someone to pick up their car. They walked and walked under the hot sun that was beating down the back of their necks. The two men were sweating like they had never sweated before. The sweat would roll down their backs and out of their pant legs and onto the asphalt, where it would instantly evaporate. The asphalt itself began to boil and stick to the bottom of the men's boots. The two men did their best to trudge forward, but their pace was slowing the further they went. It was so unbelievably hot that the men couldn't even think straight. They began to stumble to the left and then to the right, and sometimes they would even fall into the melted asphalt before prying themselves out of it and somehow finding the courage to push forward. They were worried that they were going to die, and they didn't want to die out on the asphalt because they were afraid that they would sink into it and be consumed. The two men leaned against each other and pushed onward till one of them saw something in the distance. Ryan started to run the best he could towards what he saw. He made his way off the asphalt and into the sand, which was even hotter than the asphalt. He tumbled down the sand towards whatever that thing was he saw. James saw him moving towards it and wanted to call out to him, but his throat was too dry to do so. So naturally, he threw himself into the sand and made his way after Ryan. The two men flailed through the sand and slowly could make out what they were running towards. There were palm trees and chairs and a tiki lounge with a bartender and a big swimming pool that looked cool and refreshing. The two men, at the brink of death, gave it all they had and ripped off their clothes before diving headfirst into the big swimming pool. The water was ice cold, but the men didn't mind. Even if it were colder than ice, the men would be happy. After a few moments of lying still and unwinding in the pool, The men surfaced and swam over to the edge. Ryan climbed out of the pool and then climbed up one of the palm trees and threw down a couple of fronds. The two men fashioned them into grass skirts and approached the tiki lounge. The tiki lounge had nice fans with misters that really cooled the men down, and the bartender greeted them with 2 tall glasses of water. The water was really yummy, and the men drank glass after glass for hours on end until they finally felt good again. The bartender then gave the men some really tropical cocktails, and the men were really happy because the cocktails were really yummy. "So where is this place?" Ryan asked the bartender. "Why, this is the Oasis," the bartender replied. "It's a little slice of paradise here on Earth," the bartender continued with a smile. "Yeah, but where exactly is this place?" James butted in. "I've never heard of it, and I've been in this area for 13 years. James looked around, not seeing anything on the horizon. "We ran out of gas a few miles down the road and just need to know where the nearest town is so we can tow our car there," Ryan explained. The bartender's smiling face disappeared. "There are no towns nearby," he replied. "That can't be right. We hadn't even been driving too long. Why would a road be paved out here if a car can't make it all the way without running out of gas?" James thought aloud. The bartender perked up. "What road are you speaking about?" "The road over there," James began as he turned to see that there wasn't any road to be seen. "You know, the Oasis could use a couple strong men like you," the bartender stated. "Use us?" the strong men replied in unison. "Of course. We need someone to clean the pool and someone to trim the palm trees regularly," the bartender answered. The two men considered the offer for a bit, then eventually agreed to work at the Oasis, at least until another person stops by who can pick them up. The men cleaned the pool and trimmed the palm trees better than they'd ever been cleaned or trimmed before. This was all thanks to Ryan and James' fantastic work ethic. Many years had passed, and the two men were now friends with the bartender, whose name was Brad. The two men were now 3 men, and they were all best friends, who would often dance in circles when they finished their work for the day. They kept the Oasis in the best shape that anyone had ever seen. Unfortunately, it had only been the 3 men for all of those years. But that was fine by them. They didn't need anyone else. The men would all wake up, brush their teeth at the tiki lounge, take a bath in the pool, and then dry off in the hot desert sun. They would then go about their daily tasks, cooking food that had shown up in a cooler each morning, making drinks, cleaning the pool, and trimming the palm trees. If the men ever had to use the bathroom, they would take the shovel out into the desert and dig a hole. After they had finished all their tasks in the day, they would relax and unwind by the pool and have some nice cocktails and chat for hours and hours and entertain each other by telling stories about their lives from before they arrived at the Oasis. Then, when night came, they would fall asleep on the chairs by the poolside. Everything was perfect, and they were all very happy. They were content with spending the rest of their lives at the Oasis, spending every moment together. They would excitedly talk to each other about what they would be doing tomorrow. Since they regularly did the same thing every day, they had to make as many changes as they could each day. So sometimes they would change up who does what job. Some days they would try new drinks. And some days they would even play fun games and run around the pool or just go swimming for fun. Everything for them was wonderful and ideal, and nothing could rain on their parade. That was until the Gummy Man showed up and ate them whole.